Amy is the director of the Philippines Partnership for Sustainable Agriculture and also the incoming deputy director of partnerships of GrowAsia. And apart from that, Amy is also an alumna of this particular e-course a couple of years ago. So Amy will talk from her perspective of working with a range of different stakeholders in the Philippines and Southeast Asia on how to apply a food system approach. So Amy, the floor is yours.
Again, thank you, Herman. It was such an insightful presentation, John. I hope I can give justice to this next one on the practical side of putting, of course, food systems into practice. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to all of you. This is a great honor, of course, to be invited to speak in front of you to share about our work and experiences related to food systems transformation. So for my presentation, I will follow this flow. First, I will take you to some of the lessons I learned in joining the course in 2021. Next, you will hear about how we put the food systems approach into action through the work that we do in GrowAsia and the Philippines Partnership for Sustainable Agriculture. And I will also share with you some challenges that we encountered and are encountering in putting forward this advocacy on food systems transformation. And of course, lastly, I will share some key takeaways on partnerships for food systems that I hope could help you in your respective works. So as mentioned by Herman earlier, I completed this course in 2021. I am not sure if this course follows the same mechanics, but according to Wim earlier, there has been some changes. But back then, I was happy to join the group works. Myself and 3 more course participants back then had separate calls after the sessions to work on group assignments related to the lessons. Beyond the lessons I learned, and also, of course, the new friends that I gained, I also took away some key insights that I used for our work. So if I may share with you those ones. So of course, number 1, with the course, I understood that developing and managing and implementing projects, we cannot just rush through it without deep thought and analysis. Things, systems, people, landscape evolve, and this requires a deep understanding of various drivers, as John shared earlier, outcomes, players, trade-offs, and the like as we adopt, reassess, and transform in meaningful and effective ways. Next one, I know not a lot of us are fond of tools and frameworks and diagrams, but in the food systems thinking strategy, this would require a lot of knowledge or understanding of tools and frameworks. Otherwise, we will get lost in the big thinking and we will lose sight of the vision that we are aiming to achieve. So we hope that we can get more of these tools and frameworks in the next modules so that we can use them to guide our work. Next one, of course, we should strive for continuous learning and innovation. So there are a lot of best practices, good case studies being implemented in various parts of the world that we can learn from. So we should continue to read up, to learn from one another, to talk with others and consult others on how they are doing their food systems projects and other projects related to food systems, so that we can, of course, learn from their best practices and avoid falling into the same mistakes. And then lastly, of course, resources and expertise are available. Many of us think that we lack the access to support or the access to information, but then oftentimes we realize that there are actually a lot of expertise and resource that we can tap, but we just need to find the right partners, right long-term partners, and that we should also look for the right organizations and learn how to ask the right questions. So those are just my key takeaways in taking the course in 2021. So now moving on to the work that we do. So in the last bullet point that I shared with you is about, of course, finding the right long-term partners. And in the work that we do in GrowAsia, we are in the business and advocacy of partnerships, of multi-stakeholder partnerships. So we build, manage, facilitate partnerships for, of course, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable food systems. So who are we actually? So GrowAsia is a multi-stakeholder platform, which was established by the World Economic Forum and the ASEAN Secretariat back in 2015 during the World Food Crisis. So of course, our end goal is to help smallholder farmers become more inclusive, and be engaged in inclusive food systems in markets, and be empowered as they turn into, of course, effective market players. So in your slide, in the slide, you will see some of the funding partners that are supporting our operations. So we have the Australian DFAT, the World Economic Forum, some public sector agencies, and also some private sector companies. So how do we add value, or what do we do to deliver the work that we are actually engaged in? So we broker commercial and non-commercial partnerships between, of course, between and among 640 global and regional organizations that make up the GrowAsia network. So in our network, we have research agencies, we have government agencies, academe, civil society, nonprofits, and even farmer groups. And our learnings from the food systems e-course actually help us in this brokering and facilitation of the partnerships. So, and also my participation in the e-course was very timely, because at that time we were engaged in a strategy refresh. So because we know that landscape, the development landscape is evolving, we understand that we should evolve too. So our understanding, or our mapping of the food systems, helped us develop critical entry points that could help us add value to the work, to the works of many other players in the sector. So with that approach, we were able to gather a USD $20.2 million fund to fund our work, or support our work on 4 areas. So Grow Ventures, which is supporting our work on agri-food innovations; Grow Right on promoting responsible investments; Grow Her in promoting women's economic empowerment; and Grow Beyond in promoting climate change adaptation and resilience. So we are present in 6 country chapters. So of course, one is in the Philippines. We are in Cambodia, in Indonesia, Myanmar, although of course we are slowly retiring our satellite office in Myanmar due to the political situation. We are also in the PNG and also in Vietnam. So now, to answer the question, how do we put food systems into practice? So I categorized our work streams into the different buckets to better illustrate my response. So we put food systems into action through our work in building communities of practice, implementing and developing projects, implementing knowledge and learning activities, and also mobilizing partners and resources. So in building communities of practice, the food systems approach helped us understand well the agriculture sector, the food security space, and also the development landscape that we are in. Being able to map the food systems help us identify players that we could tap in the communities of practice that we are building and facilitating. And also being able to see the networks, to be familiarized with the people, the organizations in our network, we are also able to better connect people for potential projects, potential partnerships, and engagements. And also being able to map the food systems and understand the food systems, we are also able to identify topics for dialogues and leverage our entry points for collaboration. This allows us to think more in a participatory and creative way. So in your screen, you will find 2 samples of the communities of practice that we are managing. So we established the Inclusive Value Chains Leadership Network in the Philippines. And of course, before establishing that or building that community, we first went into deep analysis of the players that we want to involve in this cohort. So on your in the pictures, you will see a mix of private sector players, government agency players, farmer groups, and even diplomatic community who are talking about different partnership opportunities or collaborative projects that they can work on together to address some of the concerns related to the food systems. So this looks like a simple picture, but in this picture, it's representing different stakeholders, different interests, different targets and motivations that allow us to do collaborative works for the smallholder farmers in the Philippines. Next, on organizing knowledge and learning activities. So of course, with the knowledge on the different outcomes, activities, we are able to map strategic learning agenda for our partners in our network. With that, with the topics that we are able to organize for learning sessions, we help guide them in developing their programs, implementing their programs, and even supporting them in building and developing monitoring tools and evaluating frameworks for their work. This also helps us in ideating activities, for example, in gathering feedback, in gathering and in coordinating for roundtable discussions and consultation sessions. Also, we, in the food systems approach, because we are able to identify players in different activities in the food systems, we are also able to identify or tap partners and experts who can share their knowledge and also bring additional resources to our partners to help them or to enable them do their work more effectively. And of course, lastly, this helps us create structured formats for documentation. So when we are able to understand some drivers, some outcomes, trade-offs, and synergies, then we are able to write them down in resource materials that can be used for the work or the respective works of our partners. Next, in project development. So there are a lot of opportunities for grant writing, for implementing donor projects. The food systems approach helped us look at or map out logical frameworks or theory of change that can help us think of solutions, strategic solutions for various concerns. So for example, we are implementing a project on women economic empowerment that we're just into concerns on climate resilience and adaptation. So with a view of a larger picture or a larger landscape or the larger food systems, we are able to look at what we need to identify or the relationships that we need to analyze in promoting the role of women in climate change adaptation. So we are able to look for entry points that could help us deliver our works and map out activities that would be strategic in achieving the goals of the projects. This also helps us in identifying implementing partners that are good in doing or to contribute to the work that we actually do. Of course, we understand that we cannot do this food systems transformation alone, and we need different players to do different sets of activities to support the overall strategies. And then I would also like to share with you a sample of a project implemented by our member, the Jollibee Group Foundation. So this is a farmer entrepreneurship program, and the Jollibee Group understood that they need to look at the structures, the landscape, the environment, the players, and the drivers for them to better map out or identify strategies or activities to help smallholder farmers. So they did baselining studies, they conducted consultation sessions to be able to identify strategies, approaches, and activities for this farmer entrepreneurship program. It has been, I think, 10 years that they are implementing this project, and they went through a long journey of failures and successes, and now they are able to engage 17 groups who are already directly supplying to the Jollibee Group for their needs for example, onion, vegetables, and the other products for their restaurant chains. And they're able to, of course, connect with different players. So at the moment, the Jollibee Group already wrote down or documented their key takeaways, the approach, their curriculum, and they are now sharing this with the PPSA to a wider audience, so that in the hopes of replicating the approach and also, of course, learning from improving or scaling up the project. And then, of course, on partners, resource mobilization. So as I mentioned earlier, we are implementing this blended finance mechanism that help us identify different players or donor institutions who can fund different parts of our works. So while we know that there are organizations or international agencies who are interested in women's economic empowerment, and there are also organizations who are interested in promoting responsible agriculture investing, and others who are interested in innovations, So what we do is we try to approach each of them to combine and collate or also blend or marry their funds from public sector funds to private sector funds, to be able to pool a larger fund for the work on the food systems transformation. So with an understanding of the food systems, this helps us identify and connect with implementing partners, and of course, connect with different funding agencies and their advocacies. So of course, this is not an easy work. Our work is on enabling the enablers. There are a lot of challenges that we face in implementing our work, and one of which is we learned that there are varying understanding of food systems concepts. So we are able to implement roundtable discussions with different players, and they all speak different languages. So the lesson we learned there and the solution that we did to address that is that we try to make our wordings more generic so that we can speak the same language. If this is not possible, then what we do is we have a deeper understanding of the audience that we are talking to or the people that we are talking to, so that we can frame our learning sessions, our materials based on how they understand the food systems concepts. Next, people work in silos, as we know. So there are diverging interests and values. And how we respond to this is we try to find the common grounds and establish shared goals. When we are able to identify that end in mind, then we are also able to connect people to rally on the same goal. Next, there are a lot of opportunities for project management and development, but there are no data available. This is a huge concern, especially in the Philippines. So what we do is we try to connect with different or partner with different agencies so that we can look at or generate or establish knowledge management mechanisms or platforms to better create database, to better collate research outputs, to help them and to help transfer this knowledge products to other stakeholders who would need it. Meaning we try to merge research to practice so that the data will be accessible to those who are actually implementing the projects and actually needing the information. And then, of course, the lack of coordinating bodies. So this is especially the case when we partner with different agencies in the government, and also not only in the government, but also in the public and private sector. So we try to be that enabler or the backbone mechanism that supports the overall management or the oversight of the project, ensuring that all the activities are looked into, the progress is tracked, and there are measures of success, and that we are able to facilitate effective and functional working groups or steering groups. And lastly, of course, M&E can be difficult. So this is something that we are still trying to improve as we move on with our advocacy. What we do is we try to rally or advocate that the M&E processes should be understood and agreed on from the planning stages, so that when we are able to map out the activities, we know that each of the activities that we are doing around the food systems approach or the food system thinking, it will result to different outcomes, and it will eliminate negative feedback or effects on different elements or drivers of the food systems. And then, as I've shared in the introduction, I will also share with you some lessons on partnerships. So of course, we are still trying to improve on our work, but these are just some of the things that we try to think about when we partner with different organizations. So if we can remember in being involved, making alignment or ensuring alignment, being transparent, and being empathic. So of course, it's important that we are able to create resonance and build trust with the people that we are working with. When we look at relationships, we don't only look at relationships of the different elements or phases or activities, but also the different relationships of the players, the dynamics that are present when we partner with different actors. So of course, involving actors from the start so that they can also gain ownership or co-ownership of the projects that you are implementing. And lastly, this is something very important that we learned: mobilize champions. There are others who have large networks that could help you rally your goals. Next is, of course, ensuring alignment. So as I've mentioned earlier, to find that end in mind, to create that common ground so that even when there are varying perspectives, varying backgrounds and contexts, we are able to address those conflicts by ensuring that we are all aligned towards the same goal. Then next is being transparent. So we believe that when you are transparent and then when you are also efficient, you are able to increase the likelihood of success of your projects. So being able to communicate the outputs, communicate challenges and conflicts, and help one another build on some resolutions to their concerns would maybe help us generate a more streamlined and effective solutions or strategies to the concerns that we are facing. Also adopt nonverbal and nonviolent communication. So we are as mentioned, we are in the business of multi-stakeholder partnership. So there are dynamics and sensitivities between and among our partners. So being able to balance the interest of others is important in the work that we do. And then, of course, being empathic. So differentiating feeling from thinking. So in the work that we do, as mentioned, there are diverging interests. And it's important that sometimes we don't agree on the projects that or the approach that the others are implementing. But if we try to look at and try to align ourselves in the end that we are all gearing towards, and also putting ourselves in the shoes of others, we are able to understand where they are coming from and look at middle grounds. And lastly, accept that you cannot change the beliefs of others. So acceptance is also, and humility is also a key to building lasting partnerships. So that's something that we always remind ourselves. So I guess that those are my takeaways from my participation in the food systems course in 2021. Maybe just to also illustrate that after joining the course, we were able to support the Philippine government in developing or drafting the Philippines Pathway for Food Systems Transformation, which is now being used to support or map out implementing activities and policies and review policies that would support transformation in the Philippines. So that's it. Thank you, Erman.